Hello, everyone. This book is just the beginning. 1001 things everyone should know about the South because the South is trying to rise again. Now, whether we want to know it or not, uh, us Black Americans was under dictatorship. They dictated everything we did. We had to have papers to go from one street to the other. Now, if that ain't dictatorship, I don't know what is. And we've been hearing this word dictatorship too many times. And it's always pertaining to Trump. Now, why all of a sudden uh, they put this label on him trying to be a dictatorship? What? I thought the Constitution and all the bills of rights and all that was going to protect us from becoming a dictatorship. So I don't understand that concept. But of course, we're in election year, so we're going to hear all kind of craziness, all kind of stupidness, and we're going to hear some good stuff too. That uh, they're going to do. Now, if we look at what they're doing, and not particularly what they're saying, we would get a better concept of who these people are. Now, we're going to have to realize that the people that vote these people into the position that they're trying to get in, look at them for once. Because we're learning this, ever since the Trump era. The Trump eras have really given us an insight on the workings of the government. Now we've started to see why some people hate the government. Um, McVeigh, we can't, don't forget McVeigh. 9/11, don't forget who, you know, and what they did in Philadelphia when they bombed the whole neighborhood of black people in it. Don't forget who these people are. And don't forget what George Wallace said. Segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. So we have people that have put these commandments in place. And if the South rise again, it's going to be another civil war. And that's for sure. And it's going to be a big mess. Because we see that most of the world takes over, do the things that United States do. Because they have learned from what we do. They see what we do. So if the Civil War starts here, it's going to be worse all over. And people are really don't say that because they can't. Because they're not trying to. Now, what is so different about the South and the North? Okay, the South comprises of Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia. Okay? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 states that they consider to be the South. But we can't forget what Malcolm X said. Anything south of the of Canada is practically, is a Dixie. But and the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico is part of the South. Now, if we keep an eye on those states, if we keep an eye on those states, we would get a recognition of what and how to stop the South from rising again. Okay. Let's see here. Let's read a few things. Okay. Let's just read this. The definition of the South. In 1787, Charles Piccaninny said, "When I say Southern, I mean Maryland and the states to the southward of her." But it's not that simple now. It is, if it ever was. Here are three of the most common definitions and what's wrong with them. Number one, below the Mason-Dixie line. Once meant south of the Pennsylvania-Maryland boundary, surveyed in the 1760s by two Englishmen, Charles Mason and Jeremiah Dixon. The line gained significance in the 19th century when all of the states north of it had abolished slavery. Below the Mason-Dixie line came to mean in the South, and it has kept that meaning in innumerable popular and country songs as well as in a common speech. But the only recent definition of the South that uses the real Mason-Dixie line as a boundary is the Bureau of Census definition. The Census Bureau South includes West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and the District of Columbia, as well as Oklahoma and 12 less questionable states. But it doesn't simply include all of the 1860 slave states as territories. Missouri, not in it. Two other definitions of the South are that inclusive. These days must stop at the Potomac, and even the southern suburbs of Washington are known in some circles as occupied Virginia. Generally speaking, the census South is more urban, richer, and better educated than the actual South. It has more armed robbery, AIDS, and lawyers. The Confederate States sounds like a simple definition, but unfortunately it's not. Kentucky and Missouri both had states in the Confederate flag and representation in Richmond, as well as in Washington. And the Confederacy never recognized West Virginia's secession from secession. Oklahoma Cherokee signed a treaty with the Confederacy, and many fought in its army. Oklahoma wasn't a state, but was it Confederate? The Stars and Bars flew briefly over Santa Fe, New Mexico. Does that count? Maybe the best definition is just where people think they're in the South. You want to tell them they're wrong. A study of businesses and organizations' names in metropolitan phone books compared the number of Southern entries in the number of American entries and gave a map that makes pretty good sense. A solid core from the Carolinas to Louisiana, some shakiness in Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Virginia, and a sphere of influence along the border from Delaware to Missouri. Texas and Oklahoma are marginal, but show a east to west gradient that will not surprise natives. Huh. Now, according to this uh, photo, the South has three layers. Parts of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arizona. Yeah. Now you can understand that because some parts of Ohio, um, they say Ohio is a red state, and Ohio has a lot of places that yeah still have that southern mindset. And see, I didn't know when I was growing up. I didn't know Ohio was a red state. We didn't talk about stuff like that. We didn't learn stuff like that in school or at home, and that's wrong. We need to be more mindful and teach our kids these things. I don't care. It don't have to be sitting down having to study. We could just talk about stuff just in passing. Something come on TV or we see something outside. We could say, yeah, Ohio is a Republican state. It's a red state. You have a lot more people that and it was open up a conversation. Oh, man, what is a Republican? Then you could tell them. You could have a conversation that you could tell and let your kids be aware of where they're growing up at and why things are the way they are. Because a lot of us grow up not knowing why things are the way they are and how it affects us personally and our community and how we can make it better. Because it's hard to make something better when you don't know what's wrong and you don't know how to keep things right if you don't know what's right and you don't know how to correct a wrong when you don't know what's wrong. We have to stop letting our kids grow up ignorant of what's going on. Yes, it's good to go out there and get an education at school. I mean, you see that the school system is becoming a battleground. And you know what's going to be most uh, the most that is going to be um, um, conflicted is the kids, all kids, because these kids are going to be the grown ups that are going to be running stuff. When we that is making all of these decisions for these kids, we're going to be old, and some of us are going to regret a lot of this because we don't know how things are going to be in another next 30 years. It's so much stuff that can go wrong because of what we're doing now. Like taking away books that these kids need to read so they can be aware of what's going on. Okay, well, that's just a little bit about uh, the South. It's a lot, you know. It talks about the Jim Crow era. So we're gonna talk more about this. Uh, the South, aka Dixie, the Cotton Kingdom, uh, the New South, the Sahara of the Beaux-Arts, the Bible Belt, below the Smith and Wesson line, the Solid South, the Sun Belt, the Southeast. These are some of the AKAs of the South. And we're going to read a little bit more on there. All right, thank you. Ah, yay. Let's get this day going. All right, thank you for listening. Please comment and subscribe. Okay, we need to be our own journalists because we need to find out what's going on for ourselves because it's time for us to start doing this for our children. Like I always say, live for the future. Okay? Because we only here for a moment.